So moving on, you know, a lot of great things happening, of course, and you know, the walk, and the four change.us, what it's all about. So my next guest is an amazing, amazing man. His name is Rashid Nuri, and he's a food revolutionary. You know, this is about food, just farming and fixing, changing our food supply chain is near and dear to my heart. It's one of the things I work on as hard as anything else. And this is at all levels. This includes all of the aspects of farming. You know, basically, and I'm not going to get too much into it because he's the expert. I'm the advocate, and he basically gives me the information and tools that I need in order to talk about this. But he's a true food revolutionary, and I'm not going to waste any more time with my breath, but I'm going to bring in Mr. Rashid Nuri into the conversation. He recently wrote a book called Growing Out Loud. I actually have it right here, and I don't know if we lost him or where'd he go. He was here a minute ago. Anyway, he'll be right here. It's good old tech, as they say. So when last time I saw him,
Can I put it back?
and there he is. This is Rashid Nuri. I have to tell you, last time I saw him, you know, this is when I got the book. See, I have your book. I just want to make sure you understand. It is near and dear to my heart, as you know.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
You having a good time today?
I am. You know, it's great. You know, technology is an interesting animal, you know, like everything else. But really, the people who have stepped up to be involved in the town hall, amazing, like yourself, and the information that we're talking about here, and that everybody's offering to make our society better, is just astounding. It's amazing. And the same with you. You know, I have the benefit of knowing what you're going to say to a degree, because my excitement is a little tempered because I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. I already know that. Yeah. But in all seriousness, you know, what I wanted, you know, I was telling people a little bit about you, and of course the book here, you know, and the book is called Growing Out Loud: The Journey of a Food Revolutionary. And I wanted to start there. I want you to describe what is a food revolutionary to our viewers, please.
Well, in this case, for me, I've been involved with promoting good food, healthy food, food as a tool for self-sufficiency, self-development for well over 50 years. And you know, following the tradition of great men like Carver, Booker T. Washington, Daddy Grace, Father Divine, Marcus Garvey. All these men talked about doing for self and being self-sufficient. So I'm following that line. So it's revolutionary in terms of my focus on today is urban agriculture, and where I began. When we put the book together, that subtitle, Journey of a Food Revolutionary, came from the people in my circle who thought it was appropriate to call me revolutionary. Now, here's how I define a revolution. Rebellion is when you burn stuff and tear stuff down. So we have a lot of rebellions around the world. But the revolution is what you build in the place of that which has been torn down. So my work all these years is to create the alternative, to build the world that I want to live in, and to using food as a tool for community building, community development. And in that sense, since we're building the alternative, creating a different way of life, a different way of approaching it, that is what makes me a revolutionary. Building institutions.
Yeah, that is marvelous. You know, the way you describe that is, I think people need to listen to that in more than once, because you know, it's all about building and changing our society for the better. I mean, that is the point of it all. Solutions-based ideas, you know, and breaking it down simple to the people, because again, our audience is diverse, and there's a lot of people who are listening here who probably haven't heard the deep dive into this that you can go into. You know, and you just mentioned something about food, in the paint by numbers way, why is it important that we make food an issue in our society?
Oh, for a number of reasons. Whoever controls your food controls you. One of the most profound modalities and methods of control is the food. You know, if you look at, oftentimes you hear about the starving children in Africa and other places in the world as if there was no food there, but it's not true. There's plenty of food. The question is who controls it? Who controls who is in position to prevent it from going to the people? And if you control the food supply of the people, then you're going to control those people. There's some political saying: you control the food, you control the people, control the oil, you control the nation, control the money, you control the world. And if you understand how those dynamics and how they work, this will make sense. So in this country, in the United States, rich people have access to food, poor people don't. Okay, and if you go in any Black community in this country, you find garbage food. In poor communities, affluent communities, plenty of food. So this is, you know, some people, U.S. Department of Agriculture calls it food deserts. I don't like that term at all. The young people have come up with a term. It's called food apartheid, because they've created and built. It's a system that's imposed upon the community. We think of we say apartheid, you often think of South Africa. But what folks don't know is the South African system that was imposed upon the Black Africans in South Africa was derived from the discrimination, the segregation that the white South Africans saw in the United States. They called it apartheid. So it applies. Apartheid is a system that is imposed. So you have to, there's no culture without agriculture. If you don't control your food, if I can't be a husband or father if I can't feed, clothe, and shelter my people. And you can't have a nation if you can't feed, clothe, and shelter your people. So if someone of an external force is controlling that which people are eating, then you got a problem. And unfortunately, we see a whole lot of that in the world today.
And I know, I walk this walk as well with you, and big agriculture is such a big part. You mentioned starvation, for example, and yet we saw a shift with first big agriculture as it grown, but we saw this shift into GMOs, which I know you have your own description of, but we saw that as an excuse to be able to feed the world because we needed to be able to produce in a way. Yeah. And it was ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. You know, that there wasn't opportunity to feed the world, it was opportunity to make as much money as they can with Westerns controlling how that food was distributed. So it wasn't about, it's never been about food as to feed the people. Food as a weapon was invented by the United States and imposed upon Africa and Latin America over the last, 75 years. After the Second World War, the petrochemical industry needed a way to continue making money. War is a very profitable endeavor. The only time that this country's been in war over 90% of its existence.
Continuously,
Yeah, continuous war. Yeah. And the only time that, in war is often used as a modality for getting out of depressions and recessions. The only time that wasn't true was at the beginning of this century over there in Afghanistan and Iraq when Bush's war. Okay, you had going into 2008, the end of his term into Obama, you had a terrible financial crisis in this country. The economy was down, and it was the first time you were in a war and not making money. So that notion that
it was a different dynamic, wasn't it?
Say it again.
That was a different dynamic, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They want to run all this okey doke and think we're going to go. Well, most of the people do go for it. That's the problem. And you got a handful of folks like yourself and me and others who can see through the madness that's around us and try to sort it out and create the alternative to what's existing. I'm 72 years old. I'm not interested in getting out on the street corner and protesting. I'd rather spend my time building the institutions that will create the future, the alternative that I would like to see in place. And so don't misunderstand that at all. I think the protest is quite appropriate. And I support all those young people that are out there in the street. They need to be. Okay? They should be mad about how this world is operating and what it looks like. I certainly have been for all of my life, but God has a way of slowing us down a little bit.
Well, and I know you're speaking truth, but I've told you this before when we sat in the room together. You smile a lot, and I'm going to get back to that because your answer to me the last time I said that to you was interesting, and I haven't forgotten it. And I'm gonna bring that back in. But again, the Walk for Change, of course, is all about change and solutions. So while we have plenty to complain about and educate about, because the education and the foundation is important, of course. Where do you want us to go in this area? What were you talking about in this book, for example?
Oh, well, the book is, people have asked me for that book for years. The book is a tutorial on different aspects of agriculture, because there's a lot about agriculture people just don't know. It's a polemic. I'm giving you detailed opinions of how agriculture works, what I see, and it's wrapped around an autobiographical theme. So I'm taking, as I go through my life, I share the lessons that I've learned and the mistakes that I've made. And I tell young people, tell anybody, if you want to, I'm going to make sure you have time and space to learn from your mistakes, or you can save time and learn from mine. And I think that's what that book provides. Now, the perspective, if you want to learn how to grow tomatoes, there are a lot of people that can tell you how to grow tomatoes and know how to grow tomatoes in book. But if you want to learn how to grow community, how many of the dots connect around the world, how countries operate, and the relationships between countries and the food, that I can help you with. You find that. There are a lot of people who have a greater depth of knowledge in any particular area of agriculture, but by God's grace, there are very few that have the breadth of experience that I've had. There are very few aspects of agriculture that I have not spent some time and done some work since I got involved more than 50 years.
So you mentioned teaching how to build a community, for example, and in Atlanta, of course, which is where I met you. Tell everybody about the project. Because there's so many people nationally and internationally that should know, especially the younger ones. You got to talk about it.
2 times under my leadership, we built the largest food largest farm in metropolitan Atlanta. We started Truly Living Well. The idea was conceived in 2005, and I came back to Atlanta to implement it and put it together. So we built around this land a training and education system, training and education center to teach people how to grow food. When I got here, it was very difficult to find a farmer's market. Now the progress is now you can find a farmer's market just about any day of the week somewhere in the metropolitan area. Many of the people who are involved in urban agriculture have come through Truly Living Well, through our training programs, our education programs, as volunteers. We've touched tens of thousands of people. I mean, just on any Martin Luther King Day, we'll have 500 volunteers out there and they're able to learn. We built the largest compost facility in Atlanta. And I didn't do this by myself, but I am the founder and I will accept credit.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. But I can testify to that. It's not, I'm a witness without question. It's the real deal. And it is an example of change and solutions that is a model that can be used anywhere.
Yes. Oftentimes people say, well, why don't you put together a satellite in our town? And I said, no, absolutely not. But because every single location has its own dynamic. So what I would do, I would come and help you build your own, but I'm not going to take what I've done here and try to replicate it where you are, because that's not necessarily going to work. One of the things that I get a lot of traffic on my email now is about compost. You got people all over this country putting together compost companies and talking to each other about compost, and they make it a whole lot more complicated than it needs to be. But I don't say anything because I'm just happy to see these young people actually doing the work.
Sure.
And they'll learn. They'll figure it out.
Like you said, it'd be nice if they learned by your mistakes, because they could save them a little bit of time. But however it works as long as we're moving in the right direction.
And for me, with the perspective that I have, I can see the progress that's been made over the last 50 years. And that's a beautiful thing. You know, I mean, this pandemic has opened up so many people's eyes. People are starting to be concerned about what their source of the food. And one of the things that I've taught for many years is what I call horticultural literacy. It's important to know who grows your food, the quality of your food, and where your food comes from. You need to know your farmer. And that's what these local food economies, what we're essentially doing is creating, no, let me try that again. Yes, that's right. What we are essentially doing is creating local food economies. And it's the local small farms and urban agriculture is the future. You got 80 plus 82% of Americans live in cities now, urban areas now. The whole world will be 70% urban by 2050. Where are people gonna get their food? We got to grow it. And what we, you started back talking about big ag. Big ag says they're doing this because they can feed people more efficiently. Well, that's nonsense. Small farms and urban agriculture are just as productive, just as efficient, and it comes back to the individuals who are producing food. And now, no farmer, I don't want to create a Disneyland concept around this. It's not, the work is hard. You're gonna be tired. Your body gonna ache, but it's very fulfilling. If you want a 5-car garage, 10,000 square foot house, you're not going to do that growing food on 5 acres. But if you want to live comfortably, feed your family, feed your community, you can do that well on a small farm and urban agriculture. And that's what I hope to see people do.
That's wonderful. So I'm gonna loop back around. As we close here to the smiling comment. So just so everybody knows. So last time I was sitting in a room with Rashid with my brother. I mentioned to him, how much he smiles, and he told me, he goes, well, and mind you, he hadn't given me the book yet. Okay, so he said, well, he goes, go to the last. He handed me the book. He said, go to the last page of the book, and read that paragraph. So I'm gonna read that paragraph for you again, and let everybody know what it is, because I loved it. This is a quote, everybody. It says, my life has not been a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what a ride. I'm at peace.
Yeah,
I thank you so much, as always. And I love talking to you, so I'm going to call you and do that.
All right, brother.
And you be well and take care of yourself. You told me about some things, and make sure you get well, and I'll see you around.
All right. Peace be unto you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Anytime. Well, that was Rashid Nuri, and as you can tell, I'm a fan, a friend. He's a friend and a brother. And again, the book is called Growing Out Loud: The Journey of a Food Revolutionary. You can find it anywhere. He is on Amazon. The Nuri Group is the name of his organization, one of the organizations. And you can find this book on Amazon and other places. I happen to have my own signed copy. Just throwing it out there.